Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and today is Tuesday, I believe. Yes, it is Tuesday, September the 20th. I've had a crazy day, so I couldn't even remember exactly what day it was. But another good trading day. Really, it was kind of a mirror of yesterday. We had the move up, the break, new high, and then we traded down, and really it's just kind of a range day. We did close slightly down today from yesterday, so it was a little bit different, but for the most part, you can see yesterday we had the spike up, had the little spiking channel, the break, the new high, and then we trended down. And this was a really strong trend down, but this was a pretty nice move down too. And we just tested the bottoms and bounced, and we ended up. Notice the two-tiered channel working down, the break or close outside, and then the move to a new low. And so everything played out. The shorter term ones played out relatively similar. Um, Really, after the close outside in the new high, we just kind of went sideways here before drifting on lower. It just took a little while to get below this support level, and this kind of moved down as the day went on. Uh, I probably would have had it right there in the afternoon before we had the little breakout pullback short. But the main thing is this was a failed second entry long here. We had the first entry pullback, second entry, and it fails, and that's a good clue. Notice how we're making lower highs there. It's a good clue we're probably going lower because a lot of people get tripped up on these breakouts and so forth, and they can be tricky. So the one thing you got to remember on a range day, you're more interested in the highs and the lows. But in this case, there's enough room that there's a two-tiered channel, so you got to let this channel play out and play the channel. You got to play the trend rules on this channel. You can see the EMA is all down. Prices are below it for the most part, so this is a downtrend. The target's probably going to be the overnight low, and if we get through that, then it'll probably continue on. But it doesn't. It bounces. We get a break, and that lets you know that hey, this channel's playing out. So um, anyway, I'm going to back out. We'll talk about the trades, and we'll call it a day. Again, when I came in, we were working up. This was the first pullback to the trend line confirmation. It's the second entry long. It is pretty close to this high, but there's enough room to get out. And if there's not, what you'd want to do is let it pull back, let it break above and put a limit order in there. And you could have gotten filled at least a tick back into that bar there with no problem. Um, you probably wouldn't have got filled at the second one until it came back further here. But if you got in here, you probably would have got out before we reached this high. But you do want to be wary of that high and make sure you got enough room to get out. I mean, that's really a double top there. So be real concerned about that. Then it pulls back. You get a little close outside and a bounce with a nice bullish bar, a little higher low than this one. So you definitely want to take that one as well. And if you were still in this one, I would add on here. You might could have gotten filled on the pullback here, and you could have gotten filled all the way down to the bottom of this, but and then it reverses right off the EMA. But you can just enter with a stop right here, and you can add on here if you like if you're not out of this one. And this was a nice little trade. Um, you would have been out most likely before the highs, but if not, it does pull back. I definitely wouldn't enter here. Once we started going sideways here, 4 or 5 bars in a row, that's more of a doji. That's definitely a doji right there. This one's pretty close. So a lot of neutral bars. I wouldn't go long there, even though that looks very tempting. Um, you probably get trapped there on the wrong side, and then it shoots down. But notice that we got the channel working up, the close outside, 2 legs up to a new high, and it reverses. So I like that for a short. That's a fairly bearish bar there. You might let it break lower and use a limit order, but I'm okay with just using a stop right there because this was definitely congestion here and a range, and that's a failed break higher, and you've already got your break and 2 legs up to a new high. You're a little bit away from the EMA, so and we haven't been getting very far away from it really very often. So I like that one for a short. That turns out to be a pretty nice trade, and then you get your close outside. You really get a new low right there, but that's so close um, to being a convincing close outside. It might just be a breakout pullback short, but it moves on up, turns down, and then reverses. And so I like that one. This is not a very good signal bar though, so I did make this one green. It's a little bit risky, but the fact that it didn't go any lower than, notice how, and there's a lot of stem on all of these. So there's some reasons to like that one. And once it starts going higher, you figure we're going back to the other side. You're better off to wait on a second entry here, counting off the low. You get one here, but it's right into the highs of the possible trend line. It's right up here near the high of the day. Not much room to get out. I'd skip that one. And then there's a failed second entry short here. So if you could get in this one before you reach this high, you could argue for this one. I probably should make that one green. I mean, that looks like a doji, but it's not. It's really only one tick off its high, so that's a fairly bullish bar. It's closing within a tick of its high. So if there was more room here, I'd say probably even call this one a blue one. It's real close, but I'm going to leave it green. And of course, we push up and get a big bearish bar on a little failed break higher again. The only reason this one's not red is because we don't really have a close outside this trend line yet. So it's a little risky, but it does look like the range here, the congestion is the larger pattern. So that would lead you to believe we're at least coming back to the EMA, and we're probably coming back to the lows. So I like that one. But it's you can't make it red for that reason. It's a little bit risky still. So, and then notice how we're moving down. We bounce off the low. We get a close outside. We move to a new low. So this one is very, very tempting to try to ride it back up. But I think you're better off to wait for a second entry counting off the low, and that made a new low. So your count starts over. So that's just a first entry. And so you're better off probably just to sit and wait and see what happens. And guess what? It turns into be a trap. And I like going short there for sure, because it's a little breakout pullback short, really. And it's a failed second entry long. So if you got trapped there, the only thing you can do is reverse or just exit. And that's what that is. That's just a long trap. And it probably fooled a lot of people. Because it's starting to bounce right at this level again. Really, we've only had a couple of bounces right there, this one and this one. So really, at this point, you probably should have been looking at it like that. I moved it up because you got those two closes. So if you're looking at it like that, it looks like it might be a pretty good long, but it's really more of a breakout pullback short. So yeah, if you got trapped there, there's nothing you can do but exit or get out. And I could see why some of you might get trapped there. But since your lows had kind of moved down, that's really just your first entry, and that's the reason I wouldn't enter that one. That's really your only clue. Of course, when it makes a lower high, that's another clue. But at the point of this entry, that wouldn't have been a lower high yet. So you really don't have that clue to help you. And that turns out to be a nice trade. You would have caught a runner, and I would have looked for a measured move. There's your first move down. So your measured move, and you can see that got you real close to what you needed there. It actually would have got another 3 or 4 ticks, actually. And then you got one working up. You get a close outside, move to a new high, and it turns down right off the trend line. That really confirmed the trend line, but that's too neutral. I don't like that for a signal bar, but when it pulls back up and you get that real bearish one, go short right there. And you probably wouldn't have got a runner on that one, though. Not unless you let it break lower and use the limit order. Then you might have gotten a runner on that one. But then it pulls back again, gives you that failed second entry long. And another turn down bearish right off that trend line. Another nice little trade there. None of these are really taking off, but they're all nice trades. And then it comes back again and gives you another bearish bar. Still, even though it pushed outside, there's no close outside. So this is still a valid trend line. That is a first entry, but that's really a double top. It's a breakout pullback from those lows right across there. You can see that support, and it breaks, pulls back, and turns down. There's a couple different reasons to like that one, even though it's a first entry counting from the lows, which is more important. And this one, this is very close to being green. I left it red because these are your important lows down here, and this is actually a breakout. This actually, no, this is the next trade. It's a breakout pullback short, but this actually broke out lower and then came back. So it's still a breakout pullback second entry short, counting off that high right there and counting off that low. Notice the new low, first entry, pullback, second entry. Only thing you really got to be a little concerned about is the lows right there, but it is a breakout pullback short. So you figure the next lows are probably the more important one, and that's way down here, and you got plenty of room there. So I like that one. It's borderline being green, like I said, but it's close enough, so I'm going to leave it red. And then this is once we made these other couple of lows here, then you do kind of have some lows across there. So this just was one more test to pull back and test that breakout just to make sure. You know, they'll test those areas multiple times sometimes, and that's your failed second entry long. Notice that's a new swing high. It's higher than that little double top. So moving down, first entry, pull back, second entry. So that's a trap. I like that one to take it to the low. This one probably could be red as well. I marked it green, but it is so close. You could go either way on that one. So if you really like that trade, I don't see any problem. I really could make that one red. I mean, I really could. The only reason I didn't is it's not a perfect signal bar. It's still closed and it's 2 ticks off its low, but there's 2 ticks above. So it closes in its lower half, but it's not a great signal bar. So for that reason, that's why I'm leaving it green. And of course, we do break below. We make 2 lows right here, a little double bottom, and it reverses. This is really your signal bar. It's very bearish, but this is very bullish, and we're a long way away from the EMA. So if you notice that and you notice the double bottom, there's not a close outside this trend line yet, so it is a counter trend trade, but it looks like our bigger pattern is going to be the overnight highs and lows, and that generally means a range day. So we're probably headed back to the EMA, maybe back to the trend line, and because we're coming up short on this side, we may overshoot this side. And that's exactly what happens. So this turns out to be a pretty good trade. Again, you probably wouldn't have got a runner, but there's a second entry counting off the low. That's your first leg up, so a pullback, so that would have been your second leg. But it's right into the EMA. So you got to skip that one. Wait and see if you get the failed second entry short. You do, but in this case, and that does confirm that little trend line right there off those first 2 swings. But it's not. It doesn't have. You know, on your traps, your failed second entry shorts on your reversal patterns, you don't have to have a perfect signal bar. So it doesn't matter if this is more of a neutral bar here. But what you do have to be concerned about is there's not much room to that high right there. If you just go with a stop, still would have worked, but what if it turns down and keeps going lower? Which it could, because there's been no break yet. So what you got to be concerned about here is that you get into this trade with enough room to get out before you get to those highs. So that means you got to use the limit order, and that changes the whole dynamics of it. You may or may not could have gotten filled on this one before it moved up to touch the trend line, and I definitely wouldn't let it touch and turn down and then enter still, because the odds of it getting through there, it could turn down, even though we came up short. So the odds say we're probably going to go at least that much higher. You still have to be concerned about it. So for that reason, I'm marking that one green. And of course, that one's another little pullback and a fairly bullish bar, but it's right in the trend line. No way you can want to go long right there. So just skip that one. And of course, we move higher. We finally get a break. Pull back first entry long, pull back. That's a second entry long, a nice bullish bar right off the EMA. We don't have a new high in place yet. I like going long right there. It's a little late in the day, but that should get you a scalp at the very minimum. And then of course we do push a little higher, but we still haven't got the retest of this low, so prices are going to try to go lower here, and of course they do. But anything after that's too late in the day, so I didn't mark any of that. So yeah, another pretty good trading day, very similar to yesterday. Pretty much the same outcome as yesterday, same type of day. Only difference being we closed up a little bit yesterday, where we closed down a little bit today. But yeah, I like this. There's some pretty good trades in here. A couple of these would have had runners as well on the way down, that you could have gotten several points out of. So it was a good day. Not a lot of trades today. This is more normal. It seems like we're kind of getting some normal price action. Um, you'll see a lot of days like this in the ES. So anyway, I did want to remind people, I hadn't said it lately, just remember the way you get better at price action, trading alone does not make you better. Just remember that. The way you get better is you come on here and you sim trade every day, and then you go back and do your study time at the end of the day. You study your trades, figure out what you did right, figure out what you did wrong. If you had a losing trade, study it until you can figure out why it didn't work, because there's always a reason why it doesn't work. If it didn't work, you misread something, or it could have just been a trap, like right here, going back to this point. There's reasons to want to take that trade. It fits our rules, but it turns out just to be a long trap. Um, that's why I'm always saying you're better off to wait on the second entry off these highs and lows. And sometimes you don't get them. And if you're consistently not getting them, maybe you take that trade. But um, sometimes you'll get trapped. But study that and realize that, hey, the reason this failed is it was a long trap, and really this is a range day, and this is just a temporary range. Prices were just finding a little support, but we were still working lower. And a couple other things. We talked about the measured leg there. You measure that one, and so when this one heads down, you're looking for a measured leg, and then of course you measure this whole leg, which consists of multiple ones, and then when it heads lower here, you're looking for another measured move, and look at there, we got a perfect, exact measured move, and then prices reversed, and that was another reason to like that reversal there. I failed to point that out earlier. So yeah, be sure that after you trade each day, you study all your trades, figure out what you did right, what you did wrong, why losing trades lost, why they didn't work. And once you get through that, then go back and start at the beginning and study this entire chart all the way through, making sure you got your trend lines right, your mid lines, and watching price action. And that's what makes you better. If you just sit here and trade every day and then quit and go home, you won't get better that much quicker. You'll still learn stuff, and you'll still get the screen time, which is needed to get better, but you won't learn as fast, and you won't figure out where your mistakes are, and you'll make the same mistakes over and over and over. So really a couple of things. If you follow the 8 tick or 2 point rule, never losing more than that, and if you don't counter trend trade, if you follow those 2 rules alone, you'll improve your trading probably exponentially. That's the first 2 major rules that most people can't stick to, and that was one of my troubles. Was I'd get so good at this that I would think I was smarter than the market, and I'd give them a little bit of extra room, and most times I'd be right, and I'd still have a winning trade. But it only takes 1 or 2 of those to wipe out a day, multiple trades, or a day's worth of trades, or a week's worth of trades, and that's what I would do. I'd accidentally get long up here and make a mistake and say, oh, okay, it's going to bounce and come back and give me a chance to get out. And the next thing you know, you're 10 or 12 points lower, and it don't come back, and you have to exit that day with a loser, and you give up a whole week's worth of trading or something dumb like that. And so those are the real major keys that you have to wean yourself off. And it took me a while, I'll be honest with you. It took me a while, because I was doing really well trading, but my losers would be very few, but I would still let one loser cost me way too much. But just to give you an example, let's say you enter long here and you exit and you only lose 2 points and then it starts going lower. Well, you can get rubbed back in and make up that trade in a trader, the next trade, maybe 2 trades, and then you're right back on track again. But if you stay with it and you sit here all day hoping it's going to come back and then it doesn't, and you have to exit way down here and you take a big loss and you wasted your whole day and you just cost yourself a day's worth of trading, or 2 days, or a week, or maybe a month, who knows, depending on how many trades you take and how big that loss was. So just remember that. Those are key pieces to becoming profitable. No more than a 2-point stop on any trade, and not counter trend trading. If you can get past those 2 things, you're going to improve instantly almost. So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.